guys. Welcome. I'm so excited. Jen, I feel like it's been forever since you've been here, but it really hasn't. It's been, well, 2 months. Like, we do it every other month, but I'm like so happy to chat with you today.
Same. I know. I feel the same way. It feels longer than it actually has been, but it's also been, I feel like this time of year, the months always somehow feel longer and shorter at the same time.
Yes. Hi, guys. Hi, Terry. Hi, Alyssa. Hi, Steph. Hi, Michelle. Alyssa said I used to get so tripped up on this one. Okay, good. Well, we will clear it up. Although I don't think you're necessarily tripped up on it anymore, but we will go there. So y'all know Jen, who is my partner at Datable and who is the nerdy slash brains behind everything at Datable. We always call her the nerdy half, but I feel like we should call her the brain half. Hi Morgana. Hey Belinda, good to see you. So basically last time Jen was here, we did a really good live stream on like dissecting your funnel. If you missed that, definitely recommend going back and watching that. It's in the group, but it's also on my website. I could probably even find it and link it. I'll do that. But a lot of people were like, wait, how do I know if I have a leads problem or a conversions problem? And it was like really a big question that kept coming up on there. So we decided to do that today and to talk about it. Hey, Julie. Hey, Lucy. But before we dive in, let me just say one thing before I forget, which is for the month of December, all of our live streams are going to have $200 gift card or cash giveaway kind of thing. So just as a way to say thank you and celebrate the holidays and hopefully like give you something to make your holidays brighter. So hey Shantae, any like comment, hi, whatever, question, anything you got for us enters you to win that $200 gift card. So yeah, just thank you again for being here. I feel like Jen, you don't need an introduction, but also I would love for you to just give us a little one about you and then we'll go from there.
I am Jen. I am the co-CEO at Datable with Lacey. And in case you are brand new to her space and don't know what that is, we focus on helping female entrepreneurs grow their businesses using data. So a topic that we're both super passionate about because it's highly customized to your business and not just like following generic copy and paste strategies. So and something that's changed both of our businesses pretty significantly and our lives pretty significantly. So that's kind of very, very, very high level what Datable is. And then my background, I was a client of Lacey's for 4+ years. I have had multiple online businesses, always kind of a behind the scenes person, either as a measurement expert or COO, behind the behind the scenes in other 7-figure businesses. So I've seen a ton of, especially what we're going to talk about today, where people are kind of picking the wrong problem to solve in their funnel and there's lower hanging fruit that you could be tackling and you just don't know how to look for it. So excited to help be part of the conversation today to do that. And then in my free time, I have a full-time corporate job too. So I'm a weirdo. I love being in both worlds. I feel like I learn a ton from both and can apply those lessons like back and forth. And I'm just that person that needs to do everything a little bit extra and have dual careers. So
I feel like you also, hey, I wanted to say hi to everybody too. Hey, Steph. Hey, Kristen. But you like are so good at downplaying that. But when Jen says she works in corporate, she means she has like a really, really, really high level badass position and actually just got like a huge promotion and raise and is like, I don't think you publicly say, so I won't say, but is like when if you like heard that, if you heard what Jen's actual position was, you'd be like, wait, what? How the fuck do you do that and run this? And it's because she's crazy. That's the only answer.
a hundred 100%. I was actually like, this is a TMI, but I was talking to my therapist this morning and she said something about like not realizing how controlly was the word she used I am. And then she's like, I really hope that that's not offensive. And I was like, thank you so much. Like, I feel so seen. Like, I'm the one person that's not offended by that. I take it by like a massive compliment. Like, thank you.
Like, thanks. So funny. So I'm here for the crazy. Love it. Yeah. Jen definitely like this is why I always am like so happy for her to come live because I'm like if anyone like is around Jen for any length of time, you're like, oh, I just like want more of whatever she has because she's obviously got something figured out. We all don't. Lucy said in a world where online business is quit your 9 to 5 and run your online business, it's really nice to hear about someone living in both worlds. Totally. I feel like it's so interesting because like Jen was saying, I was her coach for a long time, and I feel like that was always really like a push pull that you had. And I feel like you've just like really found your groove in being in both.
100%. Like, I'm so glad that I left when I did. I had stepped out of corporate for 3 years. Like, it was the right thing to do for
Yeah.
me, for my health, for my family, for building that, $1 million business before I went back. So, like, super grateful for the decision to do that. And I definitely do not think having both is for everyone. And I know that's not the topic of today. Happy to chat about that anytime too.
Yeah,
But like,
yeah, we should. I think that would be really cool. I'll write that
yeah,
down.
because I think the big lesson is just like building. I think it's like what a lit up life is all about, right? It's like building a business and a life that works for you. And whenever I was just doing one or the other, I always felt like something was missing. I don't, I think some people think, or is it like a scarcity thing? Or are you afraid that one's not going to work? And I'm like, honestly,
Mm,
no. But like, I do feel super empowered that
yeah.
like if tomorrow my job was eliminated in corporate, like I'm very confident in my ability to like grow, scale a business and vice versa, right? Like, so I just think it does give me some level of peace, but that's certainly not the reason I do it. It's just what a lit up life looks like for me. So
Yeah.
that's what
It's
it is.
so funny because I could see why it would seem like that, but just like knowing you so well, I've like never ever like you are almost the exact opposite where I'm like, that feels risky. Are you sure you want to do that? And you're like, fuck it, it's fine.
Like when I quit, you were like, are you sure? And I'm like, you know what? I know I've been doing this for 7 years and I keep getting promoted and but I just think it's fine. Like I think I could just generate 20K
Yeah.
and get rid of this job, like 20K a month or whatever, and get rid of this job. And you were like, do you want to talk it through more? I'm like, nope, I'm good. I just did it. Like,
I did it.
done.
I quit.
Email
Yeah.
sent.
Mm, yes. Lucy said she wants a separate live on how you manage both. Yeah, yeah, we'll do that. I just wrote it down, Lucy. I
Yeah.
think that's a really
Yeah.
good idea. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Actually,
Steph said, yeah,
data
a little
data
life is
does help me with it. So that'll be cool to be able to like weave that
yeah,
through to the ways that like that makes it possible in so many ways.
so true. So basically to kind of like start to dive into the topic, we want to talk about leads problem or conversion problem. So I think it's so like if you could know one thing going into next year, it would be this. If you could know if I either need to work on leads in my business or work on conversions in my business, if that's all you know going into next year, you are like exponentially more likely to have a good year next year. If you do not know the answer to that, like you are just guessing at this point in terms of like your goal setting, your strategy, all of that for next year. Do you agree with that, Jen?
1,000%. And I'm excited. I'm not going to share like our numbers, but I'm excited to share like the process that you and I went through recently and how
Yeah.
amazingly telling that was and surprising it was in some ways as to like where we actually needed to be focusing was fascinating.
Yeah, well, maybe we should just start there. I'm like, cool if we share all of that. But Morgana said she loves that, and Joe said too she really loves the insight. Okay, we'll definitely have Jen do another one on this because I think that it is so unique. Sometimes I forget how unique it is because I just think of you as so unique, but I feel like that's perfect. We have to do that.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, but so let us give you an example of ours because maybe it'll help to go specific and then we can go more broad. But recently we have been basically working on one funnel. So we've talked about this, right, in our business. Like one funnel is our full goal, primarily because we both have other things going on, but also because we really believe in like working one thing, making it work, and then applying that outward. So in doing that, what we have realized is we don't have a leads problem. We have well, I guess it's both. Like, so here, there's nuance. So I'll basically share this with you in this way. But like, what we saw is like, okay, we get X amount of people to our sales page, and then X amount of people to our checkout page, but we're still not getting enough conversions or as many conversions as we should be for how many people are landing on the page. However, we still want more people landing on the page to hit the goals that we ultimately want. So it's kind of this like interesting dynamic. And I think this is where people can get tripped up is they're like, well, then is it a leads problem or is it a conversion problem? Because, it depends. But ultimately for Jen and I, it is more of a conversion problem at this point because whenever we push things, we get leads. Whenever we go through periods where Jen and I just like haven't talked about it for a while, obviously our leads fall. but it's not really a leads problem because we know how to generate the leads.
Yep.
Would you say that's uh like how you would explain it, Jen?
Yeah. And I mean, I think like even when leads aren't your problem, it's just always smart to be focused on leads. So like I
Exactly.
think we're not saying like you're going to focus on one and completely ignore the other. It's more like figuring out what is going to have the biggest impact for you right now. Like if you're getting 0 people to your sales page, worrying about a 0% conversion rate is the wrong problem, right? Like, but if you're getting 100, 100 people to your page and it's 0%, and I don't, obviously there's going to depend on what you're selling, like then it's like, okay, well, I'm getting people here. So now I need to figure out why they're not converting. And so I think like both can be true, but we definitely were surprised because we had been telling ourselves it was a leads thing and that like when people saw, they bought. And then we were like, oh, actually, there are people that are seeing that are not buying. And so, like, what are we doing here to help them and get more clear for them? Which was surprising to both of us because both of us just had been talking about it as if it was a leads thing. And so it was really helpful to look at it and then also know that like even on the sales side, there's different components of it when you break it down. And so us being able to do some scenario planning and going, okay, like if we focus here, this is the impact it would have. If we focus here, this is the impact we would have. And we kind of went through every scenario and then we were able to combine a few and say, okay, if we focus on these 2 things, like we're going to get this X of a return versus if we had just focused on getting more people.
Yeah, and actually sometimes that works against you when you get too stuck in that I just need more people phase, because then you put a lot of effort into driving people to something that is not converting at the level it needs to. And so then you've kind of shot yourself at the foot a little bit because you just spent all this time in traffic here. And obviously maybe those people will come back around. It's not to say that like, that they're gone forever, but sometimes they are gone forever.
Yeah.
And sometimes you really kind of lost your opportunity by driving a ton of traffic to something that wasn't working. So it was like so helpful for us to be like, whoa, before we like full steam ahead run at this, like let's also get this piece fixed. And again, like Jen said, it anytime you say is it leads or conversions, like obviously you always need both, but you do want to know where should the majority of your attention be going. So it doesn't mean we're not going to do anything to drive leads. Like I'm still going to talk about our webinar. I'm still going to like send people there. But it means like in terms of like when we have time and space for the business, what we're focusing on, I'm maybe not going to make 10 reels. I'm maybe going to go rework our checkout page kind of thing, right?
Yep, exactly.
Hi Lacey, hi Nita, hi Aveline, hey Joe. It's good to see you guys. Um, and obviously if you guys have questions for us, let us know too. But so when Jen was talking about the kind of scenario planning, I think this is so helpful because I think almost no one does this. And I think you don't realize when I'm gonna tease Jen because when your therapist said that to you about control, this is like the perfect example of it. And for me too, Jen and I love to be in control, which is why we love numbers. And so when we basically what Jen did is created a spreadsheet and was like, okay, if we upped our checkout conversions by this much, what would like by this percentage, what like income impact would that have? If we upped our sales page conversion rate by this percentage, what impact would that have? And she like went through all the scenarios and saw which one actually would output the biggest financial impact. And it was really, really interesting because actually, this was the funniest part to me. It was the 2 easiest things. Like, if there were 2 easy things on that list, like if Jen was just like, Lacey, pick the 2 easiest things for you to do here, I would have been like, well, this thing and this thing. That's what it fucking was. And I was mind blown because I was about to pick the hardest thing.
Yeah, you were.
And go do it. And I was like ready to do the hardest thing, right, Jen? Like Jen was like, hold your horses.
I was like, let me just check the numbers. Like, I think but I thought you were right too. Like, it's not like I was like, let me prove you wrong with these numbers. It was like,
Yeah.
I was kind of like, oh man, like, I want to triple check before we commit to this because this is going to be a lot of work. And like, I have a lot coming up, like, as you do too, but like coming up in the new year, I'm like, let's make sure. And so it was just as much of a surprise to me. I also think that like, and this is going to surprise a lot of people, I'm not actually a math person. Like, I think being a data person is not the same as being a math person. And so everybody that knows me, like before Datable, thought it was hilarious that I, built this business because I'm not like when someone's like, what's 7 + 6? I'm like, I actually don't even know the answer to that. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not that kind of person. And so to me, when you're like, oh, if you improve the conversion rate, like, I don't know, I guess like when I was thinking of like, if you improve the number of people, it's like directly relational. So I would have
Yes.
assumed that all three scenarios would have the same financial impact. But just having done this for some time, I know that now that that's not the case. But I just want to acknowledge that because like, I felt really dumb when I first learned that. I was like, oh, you're not? Like, wait, this could make more money than that. But like, wouldn't it always, like, isn't it like directly proportionate or whatever the right mathy phrase is?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was a big surprise. It is a massive difference. I mean, like, there was like I don't remember the exact percentage, but it was like 4 times, like, focusing on one area was 4 times more revenue than focusing on another. And I was like, wait a minute, what? Like, but then when you actually start to think, like, apply logic, you're like, oh, this actually makes a ton of sense. But my simple math brain was just like, oh, well, like, they don't have the same impact. Like, I should not admit this, but here I am, not math
No,
savvy.
I think it's so important. I also think it's so important to say, like, this is why data is so cool, but this is also why data can be intimidating to people because there's always more that you can do with it or more places to take it. And I think that can be overwhelming. But if you can get over those first little barriers, right? Then you can go do the fucking easy thing that's going to generate you 4 times as much impact. And now, like, when I go do that thing, I feel so in control and certain where I'm just like, well, I know if I fix this thing, we're making 4 times the revenue on that. Like, it's kind of that simple, which is crazy. I just want to look at comments before they disappear because
Yeah,
I
no,
see
I'm
my
sorry. I was
hi,
trying to look at
Lisa.
them too, but my computer keeps like it making this weird glitch thing. So I didn't want to freeze myself. So
Oh,
I had to close out of Facebook.
I
But
can do it. Belinda said a spreadsheet. So Jen, yes, so Jen. Yeah, Steph, exactly. We tend to think success has to be in doing the hard things. I definitely fall into that sometimes. If you find that problem is that click rate on your email is low, which means not enough people are seeing the sales page, what do you recommend? I'm thinking Facebook retargeting ads to your email list. The click rate on your email is low.
click rate, there's a
Before I
lot of
spent
studies.
money on Facebook, oh, sorry, go ahead,
No, you
Jen.
go ahead, please. You go ahead.
Before I personally spent money on Facebook ads, I would do a lot of testing within the emails. Like I would put a lot more links in the email and see if that makes a big difference. I would change up how I was saying it. I would change how I was talking about it. Um, I would definitely do a lot of like within email testing before I put money to retarget because, you know, it if they're not clicking in the email, it does like a Facebook ad doesn't necessarily mean that they will click kind of thing. Like there's obviously something different. So I'd want to figure out how to change that within the email before I put money behind it. What would you say to that,
No,
Jen?
I agree 1,000%. I was actually trying to think of a dating analogy there because it feels like a little bit like if I'm getting an email and I'm not clicking, and then you're chasing me around with Facebook ads, like I'm almost a little bit put off by that versus when I actually click on something in an email and I'm getting retargeting ads, it feels a little bit more like I welcomed this engagement. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I agree 1,000%. Also, like I think the people I know that have been really successful with Facebook ads have done so after they've really validated their funnel is working.
Yeah.
And without people going to your page, you don't have that validation because like the click rate might be a problem from email, but then you might also have all kinds of problems in your sales page and your funnel that you don't know. So like spending money seems premature. I think I would, like Lacey said, check the number of links, check your formatting and your style, see how the open rates are. Open rates, I don't consider super reliable because there's a zillion ways that those can be off. But again, it's like more about being directionally helpful versus it being perfectly accurate. I would try, different language, like getting more like teasing people, making them want to click. And I would really work on that. I'm like, and Lacey, you might disagree, which is totally fine. I'm also very big on calling people out. Like, hey, I've sent you a bunch of emails about this. You've never clicked on a link. Like, what's going on? Like, is this the topic that doesn't resonate with you? Are you confused about what I'm talking about? Like, I think it's like we've done it. Like, hey, we've been talking about this program for a year and you haven't joined. Like, we would love your feedback. Like, we just want to know what's going on. And so I think it's also okay to ask people sometimes, like, hey, what's the deal? But yeah, I agree.
Stephanie said she places the link in the email at least 3 times and has played with buttons. I would say even more than 3 times. Like 3 is not a lot to me.
Yeah, you link a lot. Like you link,
I
I know
link a
'cause
lot.
I load our emails and I'm like,
Yeah.
you put a lot of links in it. I've heard the 3 link thing before, but I mean, I notice when we have a lot of links, we get a lot of clicks. So
Yeah. Yeah, I would like sometimes I'll do 6. Like I'm
yeah.
like more links, more clicks. Like it's kind of that simple to me. Um, and then your open rate's 20%. Like you might even focus on open rate before you focus on click rate. Like you could get open rate above 20%, and
Yeah.
that could really help too. So I'd actually like I'm in terms of fixing your funnel, I'm always like start at the earliest point that you can. So like to me, open rate could be higher, and so I would start there.
I would explore resending to unopens too.
Yeah,
I don't think people use
totally.
that nearly enough. Like just change the subject line. You don't
Yeah.
even need to acknowledge it. Like I used to be so nervous about it, and I used to be like resending, or like now it's like if they didn't open it, they're probably never going to open it. Like some people have filters. Like there's a million reasons that someone could have missed your email, or the subject line wasn't compelling, so they deleted it. Like the odds
Yeah.
that that person opens the resend and goes back and finds the, like, come on, have you not lived on the internet before? Like this is
Yeah.
what happens. So
Yeah.
I think I would try
Agree.
that too. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised. Like I've done that with sales emails, and then people have opened that one and bought.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and also like at that point, then you might just say, is it a messaging thing too, right? Like if subject lines could improve and then if emails could improve, like do we need to just shift the messaging to make your audience like a little bit more engaged there too? So I would look at that too.
That's a good point. One thing I would add there, Lacey, because it reminds me of back before we did Datable together, when I had like the Nimble Co on my own. Before Lacey and I came together, I was doing this as a service, and I had Measure and Maximize, our program, as like kind of it was smaller back then because it was just
Yeah.
like the side thing. Eventually I grew that to be the main thing, and then Lacey and I joined forces to make it even a bigger thing. But when one of the times, and you were coaching me at the time, because I remember us walking through this, like I was doing a lot of my messaging back then around service providers adding measurement on as a service.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, a lot of our early students and big success stories, that was the case. But when the more we like got to know my audience, it turned out a lot of the audience was actually business owners that wanted to do this themselves, but like they weren't buying or clicking because the messaging that I was using was like, hey, offer this as a service. And they were like, I'm a coach, I don't want to offer this as a service, I just want to learn this for my business. And so that was one of the reasons I partnered with Lacey, because it was like, how can we talk to people the right way and show up where they are and help them with this? Because like we just want more people to get it. Like I don't care if they're using it for a service provider or for their own business. Like we just want more people leveraging this because it's like the secret and everybody could be doing it. So I think that's like a really important piece too, is think like messaging overall. I just wanted to reiterate what Lacey said, because I feel like there could be an opportunity there.
Yeah, totally agree. That's a great example. Um, so okay, so to circle back, basically, when we were figuring all this out, the gist was we could like 4 times it with the easiest things. Just gonna reiterate that one more time because my mind was still blown. And again, like, yes, there are some barriers to overcome there. You're like, well, how would I even figure that out or whatever? But once you figure those things out, you are so certain in your next directions and you're pretty much guaranteed a payoff, right? Versus if I had done the harder thing there, I could have put in a lot more work without kind of the guarantee of it being a certain payoff. And I just think we all forget that we can track stuff like this. Like if I could improve this conversion rate by 1%, I could literally know, like I could know math wise what income or output that would generate. And I feel like almost no entrepreneurs that I know do the math on that in a really substantial way, except for like much bigger businesses, and I feel like if we could have that in our smaller businesses, like it really does guide your direction so much and it makes you feel so motivated to do what you're going to do. I feel like so many people lose motivation in their businesses because they're just like, I don't even know if this is worth it. I don't even know if this is going to make a difference. And it's so easy for motivation to wane. Like I'm super motivated right now. Like I fixed that thing like that, right? Because I was like, oh, well, fuck.
I know.
allow me to handle this if that's
Yeah.
what it's going to generate, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like it was actually funny because we had the call, and then the next day it was like the base camp things were like flying through and like things were done, and then but that made it then easy for me, right? Because I could take your stuff and do my updates. And it was like It allowed us to work together
Definitely.
easier, and it did feel so much more productive than like starting something brand new and like doing all these other things and adding all this extra stuff to our plate when it was like this is enough. And it's gonna, I know like it's gonna have a big difference. Like we might not see it immediately because it's December, but like I know
Yeah.
very confidently that that's going to be a huge lever for us.
So I want to use that specific example because I think it's helpful to see that, but then we'll kind of zoom out. But the one thing I want to say on that is you guys know that I will always like unabashedly use Jen's brain for these things. So I asked her to make the calculator she used for all of you so that you don't have to overcome that barrier. Like if you're like, wait, I want that fucking calculator. And so basically what you can, do you want to share about it? Do you want to
Yeah,
just
yeah.
share it?
No, and I was laughing so hard because you guys need to know how serious she is about this, that like her first audio back to me was like, oh my God, what? And wait a minute. Wait, why aren't we using
Why
this
can't we give
spreadsheet?
this to people? Yes.
Like, why aren't we doing this? Like, that was literally her first thing. She actually sent me an apology like later. She's like, I didn't mean to jump right to that. Like, obviously, I know you have a lot on your plate, like permission to not make that like an emergency, but like also like that's a really big deal. So yeah, in full transparency, I have our messy version. So I'm cleaning it up right now to make it more user friendly because I built this as like just my brain. So it's not super intuitive. So this morning I got about 30% through building a version that will actually kind of be more question based. So it's going to be like you enter in these things and then it's going to give you all the scenarios for you. So it'll be just super easy to read, easy to make decisions from. So I'm planning to have that done by tomorrow and send it out to everybody that like opts in. And then it's just going to be a normal one of our like free resources for people. So I'll at least in Zoom, I'll message you the link if you want to drop that in Facebook,
Okay.
just because I can't.
Yeah.
Facebook keeps glitching for me. Um, but yeah, I mean, basically, and I just don't. Unfortunately, I don't have one to show right now because it's not clean. But what you're going to do is you're going to enter your current views to your sales page. Now, when we say sales page or funnel, we're talking about your overall sales process. So for those of you that are coaches and you don't have like a product or a thing that you're selling and yours is more one-on-one, like there will be a version of this that's customized too for like different flows. But for the most part, it's like viewed your sales page, or maybe it's viewed your discovery call page, right? It's like viewed that main page where you're making the ask of people. And then you would put in the number of views to your checkout page. So again, we're kind of thinking about it as like a normal sales page, checkout page, thank you page flow. But I will have notes in the whole thing about what different scenarios might look like, because for coaches, you might want to look at like discovery calls to bookings to, different flow. So I'll have all that in there as well. And then you just need your number of purchases. And then lastly, you would need your average cost per purchase. Now, I understand like some people have bumps or different packages or things like that. So that's why I say pick an average. For us, it's pretty easy because we have pretty standard and transparent pricing. So while some people, I didn't even factor our order bump in. So technically our average number that I used was less than what the reality is going to be given like how many people take the bump. But I just thought I like to go with the lower number. So once you put all that in, it's going to generate some different scenarios for you. So it'll tell you what your income impact would be if you were to increase your traffic, which is again views to that first page. It's going to tell you what your income impact would be if instead you focused on that click-through rate. So getting people to click from the sales page to the checkout, which I think is the one that's the harder of all the things. And Lace, tell me if you disagree with that. But I think like getting people to click from your sales page to your checkout is a hard one, because that's where people are spending like updating your sales page and having to look at like, well, how far down are people scrolling, and people get caught and spend a lot of money there. That was the one that was the surprise to us. That was like our lowest impact. We were like, oh my gosh, no, we're good. Like we're going to leave that for now. But it'll tell you that one. And then it'll also give you a scenario where you increase your cart conversion rate. So this is like, once someone gets to your cart, what percent of them are actually making the purchase versus abandoning the cart? That was one of our eye-opening opportunities. Like we didn't think, because last year that wasn't the thing. Like if you remember last December, ours was like it was like beyond industry standards. Like ours
It
was
was like
really
insane. Yeah. We were
yeah.
like, oh, fuck. Yeah.
But we spent so much time in 2023 because our numbers were opposite last year. Like last year, our sales page click-through rate was really bad because I think I had written the old sales page. So like Lacey came in, like revised it, the numbers went up. Like, so it's like this is also an iterative process. Like you're gonna fix one thing and then you're gonna need to go somewhere else and it's gonna change. But that's the other one is the cart conversion rate. And then let me see, I think that's the three. Oh, and then for us, I looked at two of them because I actually felt like, okay, well, increasing traffic, like I think, like my little hypothesis was like, I think we could both increase traffic and increase our cart conversion rate, right? Like that felt relatively reasonable. Lacey's a really strong copywriter. I'm good at design. So I feel like together we could tackle the checkout page pretty easily. And then from a traffic perspective, we had already been talking about some ideas we wanted to try. And so I did one scenario for us that just combined those two. And it was like, that was the 4X one. Like, actually, it's way more than 4X. That was 4X from just increasing traffic. It's like, I'm really bad, again, bad at math, but it was like a lot of X above just increasing the click-through rate alone. I'm so professional today. Like a lot of X because I don't know the formula offhand for that, so I'd have to Google it. But again, taking the shame out of needing math to be perfect. Like
Yes.
Like we can Google it. Like I can ask ChatGPT, how do I figure out how much, like how many X more is this from this, right? Like you don't need to know those things. You just need to be resourceful to figure out how to know them. Like that's really the secret. Yes. And so anyway, those were the scenarios that we ran. And it was like so amazing because we were going to spend so much time redoing our sales page. We were like, do we need to redo our webinar? Like we had so many other things that we were questioning and thinking about. And we were like, oh, this is actually like very reasonable that we can do this. And then even for like, cart CVR, and we haven't even talked about all this, but like in our map too, we were like, oh, well, maybe we put retargeting ads in on the cart CVR, right? Because like if people are abandoning, we can follow up via Facebook ads. So that was a potential idea that came out of it that we haven't done yet. Updating our cart abandon sequence. That's another one. Like there are a ton of little micro levers that we have within this. So we were like, let's pick the things that we think will have the biggest impact on those first. But then we have this whole like parking lot of other things that we can still try. And that's super exciting to me. Like I love being able and go from there.
Yeah, totally. Michelle said her favorite quote of the day was, it was a lot of X. Everyone was really excited about this though. I'm so glad you guys are excited about it because I was so excited about this. Like Jen said, she told me all this stuff about our business and I was like, cool. Anyway, can you make this for people? I
wish I saved the audio. I probably have it where you were like, yeah, that's all great. Like, fine. I'm going to come back to that. But like, why? Yeah. Like, why aren't we sharing this?
Because it's so obvious when you see it. But again, I think it's just like, there's so many steps and sometimes you want to be able to like get the initial data and then be like, what makes sense here? But I think the really important point here is that what we ultimately have, like if Jen and I had to like conceptualize it, we have a conversion rate or a conversion problem from our checkout, which is a great problem to have. That is like literally the very end of the funnel. So we're like, okay, amazing. We have iterated the funnel up to this point where like the problem we have now is like the very, very end of it. And we've been doing this for a year.
Yeah.
And like we've had some stop and go and different things like that, obviously. But I think it's just important to say that. But it's also important to say that it doesn't mean we don't want leads or that we didn't factor leads into our equation or that leads can't 4 times our results or whatever. They can, they always can.
Yeah.
But I feel pretty confident still putting leads through this funnel because our issue is like very, very, very end of funnel and we have solutions there. If you're like, I don't know that sending more leads will do fucking anything right now, please focus on conversions. Again, keep marketing, keep showing up, but like really, really, really know conversions are the thing that are going to get you the best result. Of all my clients, when I think about the clients that like had those big pops or those massive moments, it was almost always more conversion focused than leads focused. And I think everyone thinks it's the opposite. But
Yeah.
truly, when I can think of the clients where it was like, damn, how did that happen? It was conversions. It really
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Mhm.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. Same thing through all the things that I've seen with the different client work.
Right? It's like, because when you can take a conversion from like a 2% to a 4%, everything changes. When you just add 2% more people into your funnel, like it could just not even make that big of a difference, to be honest with you.
For sure. And you know what it reminds me of? And this is not a knock at this population of people, because I actually have a deep respect for bloggers, but like it reminds me of when I first started my online business. I focused on, I was a service provider supporting like 7-figure bloggers, because I had grown up way back in the day in the blogging space. And I think
Yeah.
it's super underrated, and those people work so hard. And it's like, so again, nothing but like love to bloggers. So I don't want this to be misread in any other way than that. But like a lot of times with bloggers, it's about like the short hit, right? It's about
Yeah.
like you very like page view focused. And so there's not a ton of focus and emphasis on getting the people back. It's more like we need the page views because we're paid off of ads, and advertisers work with us based on the number of views. And so that's where it all gets focused. And so it's this world of like, you feel like you're constantly having to be out there, and like traffic dips. And now, I remember in 2016, Google changed its like affiliate payout, or Amazon changed its affiliate payout, and like it went from like something, it was like wild, like 8% or 4% you got for every purchase. And then they dropped it down to like 2%, and it just like destroyed people's income, right? And so it just reminds me a lot of that when people focus on just the leads. And then I've seen, I mean, a lot of the bloggers that I worked for previously aren't in business anymore because they either burn out, or like eventually you run out of ways to keep acquiring. Like, yes, you can pay for it, but then ads went through the roof, right? And it was like, Instagram and Facebook build algorithms to like try to make things more in line with what people are looking for. And so you can't break into the feed as easy as you used to. And like, just things constantly evolve. And so it just felt like they were always having to like reclimb the mountain, versus the few that I know that are still crushing it today, focused more on retention, nurturing, and conversion, right? Like keeping the people versus just acquiring the people. And those are the ones that are still going strong today.
That's such a good
And so it's,
example.
yeah, it's like, because you'll burn out, like you'll just burn out. It's so much to be constantly thinking about acquiring instead of like taking care and keeping of what you already have.
And it's super, super fun to go acquire leads if you know you have really strong conversions.
Yes.
So fun. If you don't, it's not that fucking fun. It feels like you're just on a hamster wheel, right?
Yeah, you stopped us actually like Q1 of this year. We had all of these huge plans to do a bunch of different lead gen things.
Yeah.
And I remember you called Megan and I one day, or like voice messaged us. And you were like, because this, remember at this point in time, we had the opposite problem. Our cart conversion rate was fine, but our sales page, like people weren't clicking. They were getting to a sales page and they were leaving. They weren't clicking through. And so Lacey just was like looking at the numbers, and she's like, you know what, guys, like I really don't want to do all this lead gen because people are hitting this page and they're not staying. So like, it's not a good use of our time. Like we're going to be spending all this energy and effort to acquire people, and we're probably not going to acquire them. Like this doesn't feel great, but like, let's push this out to the fall. And I remember when you first said it, I was like, oh my God, that's a long time. But like, I'm so glad that you did that and that you stopped us, because we would have been spinning our wheels, not going anywhere. Like, I don't know. It reminds me of like those, those like fancy race cars that like, they're like the back tires are spinning, but like the front aren't
Yes.
going anywhere. It's like that. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like that would
Yes.
have been us for all of 2023, and we would have burned the freak out. And so like I'm grateful that you were able to look at that and be like, let's pause. And now we have a much better conversion rate too to show for it.
Yes, totally. And it took us time. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's the thing too, is so hard for people to like wrap their head around, is like Jen said, I was like, we have to push this till at least fall. Like that sucks and that hurts and that takes time. But it's like, this is how you really do build a business that you can iterate and sustain. And it's why we're now end of funnel fixing the last pieces, as opposed to still beginning a funnel being like, I don't know what the fuck, you know?
Yeah. And you might be
I,
able to go different speeds, right? Like
yes.
that it probably will take long. I guess I think Lacey's point is it's probably going to take longer than you want it to take. But I
Yeah.
just do want to
Oh,
asterisk that like Lacey runs a full ass business, right? Like I have a
yeah.
career. This is our side thing. So we kind of can afford to extend it a little
Yes.
longer. For you, it might be 3 months, right? Like it might be a different,
Totally.
you're still going to feel a little uncomfortable. But I just wanted to name that because we can push a little bit more because this is not the main thing for either of us.
You're so right. That's so important. Okay, we have two questions. Shantae's was a little while ago and I just grabbed it.
Okay.
So I want to make sure we get to it. And then Julie has a question too, I think. So Shantae said, maybe this is a question that can't be answered here, and that's okay, but I'm curious if it makes sense to measure overall views versus views from certain pathways. For example, IG bio versus threads bio. Is that too nuanced?
I think the answer is it depends. I think both are important in different scenarios. So I would start first by your overall. And Lacey, again, always permission to disagree.
Yeah.
I'm not sensitive about this stuff at all because it's best. Based on what I've seen, I typically want to see the overall first. Like we have not dissected which paths are converting differently right now. Like, could we? Yes. Is that where we want to yet? No, right? Like we want to make sure first that our overall is solid. And then yes, I think you could go more nuanced and look at each, be like, wow, that's really interesting that like Pinterest is like those people convert at 50%, where like Instagram bio is only converting at 15%. Like what do I want that, like what does that mean and how is that going to influence my behavior? But I wouldn't do that until you feel good about your overall number. Only because I think that could send you down 49 different rabbit holes versus being really strategic. Like I actually don't think we would even go that route until we feel decent about all three, right? Traffic, click-through rate, and conversion rate. Like I think once we felt really like, we don't need to be perfect, but I think once we feel good about it, we don't feel like there's a major problem in any, then I could see us start to go there. And we always watch, like we always look where the traffic's coming from, but we're not like going deep on those numbers just yet. Lace, I don't know if you would disagree or add anything.
No, I 100% agree. Like, I think that those aren't needle movers. Those aren't huge needle movers, in my opinion. They're those
They're like
smaller, more
tweakers.
nuanced things or tweaks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. I couldn't come up with that word. Um, so it's like in our example, right? Say we get that checkout to conversion up, then I might actually start going back to like, okay, what leads are performing the best? But it'll be because our whole funnel is performing. And then I'm just like iterating little pieces as opposed to like an initial thing. Because sometimes that initial thing, it's almost like I don't know how else to explain this, but it's almost like you don't have the landing gear to even make that work for you kind of thing, right? So it's like, if you don't have a really well functioning funnel, you kind of don't really have the tools to make that level of detail work for you. But I have done this with some clients where they do have a really good funnel and we are looking into that level of detail, and it can really make a difference in terms of like not even just revenue but profit, where we're like, wait, these convert so much better. What if we stopped paying a Pinterest manager or whatever? So it can be really good, but I think it's good like quite a bit further down a funnel typically. So if you haven't really done a lot of diving into like overall views and really perfecting that, I would do that first. Yeah.
Agree. And you might not even know, if you don't know yet or you haven't yet done the correction or adjustment at the high level, it's very difficult to know what to do at the lower, like the more granular level. Like I know exactly what I would do if I saw our conversion rate was higher on Instagram than it was on, Facebook. But that's because I've seen these numbers and I've gone through this exercise so many times before. Like I would venture to guess that most people don't just inherently know that, and it can actually cause more confusion and more frustration that way.
Yeah.
But obviously, like if you have already done all that deep diving and you're asking because you want to get more nuanced, then yeah, then go for it.
Totally. Yeah, she said makes all the sense. Okay, cool. Yeah, don't go down the rabbit hole. Exactly. Okay. Julie said it will be really interesting to see this for my one-on-one coaching funnel and see the impact of working on getting people to sign up for a call versus improving my ability to sell on a call. I know they're both important, but as a solopreneur, it will be awesome to prioritize based on data. Yes, Julie, like you are going to be in such a different position than 98% of business owners just by thinking about it in that way and not trying to run at both. Like most people are like, I need as many people on the call as possible and I need to convert as high as possible. And I'm going to do all of it all at once. And we totally underestimate how much fucking work that is and how much brain space that is and how it's next to impossible to focus on all of that at once. And so when you're just able to go, oh, I know I could sell at, like, I can convert right now at 50%. Throw it in the calculator. What does more leads get me? Okay, it would get me this output at 50% or opposite to that, right? Like, okay, I know I'm converting at 50% and I have this many leads. What if I could convert at 70% and kept the same amount of leads? See which one would create a better output for you and then focus there, right? Are you
Yeah.
taking notes, Jen? Like in
No,
time?
I was though, because your comment before about landing gear, I was like, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm flipping through this book. I was reading this book last night. I don't know if anybody's read it. It's called Principles by Ray Dalio.
No.
It's like a really good business. It is more leans more corporate. So just a forewarning, because he was the CEO and founder of Bridgewater, which is like one of the largest investment groups.
Yeah.
Anyway, though, there was something in here. He was talking about data, and I'd highlighted it last night because it was fascinating. Talking about like they were taking something that seemed very untrackable and making it very trackable and talking about, and I'll have to summarize it because I don't want to get distracted like flipping through, but like he was talking about also, and we talk about this in Measure and Maximize, but like making sure as you're making changes, you're like keeping a little log, like, hey, we changed these things. How did this impact the numbers? Because then you start to get systematic about it, right? Like
Yeah.
you're like, oh, when I added a video to our checkout, our conversion rate shot up. Okay, cool. Well, now I can apply that to other ways. Like, well, what if we add a video to our, sales page or whatever, right? Like I changed my button from like blue to green. Did that make a difference? Like, I think a lot of times we go through as business owners and we're like, I read somewhere or I saw somewhere that these things need to change, right? And so I did those things. But then we don't take the next step of going, but did those things make a difference? And if they did or did not, how are we now applying that to our business? And I'll find the folks. It was an amazing, like, it was a totally, I think it was about interviewing. Like they talked about not just like during the interview process, it was like people don't then document what they hired for, like their decision-making criteria, and then being able to use that historically. So waiting 6 months, a year, how was the performance of that individual? Were they in fact the right fit? Did it work out? And what was the criteria you used? And then looking across, you could see why I would love this. And being like, okay, is this a trend across all the high performers that we ended up hiring? We asked them what their favorite animal was, right? Like, it's like silly thing, or they said the tiger was their favorite animal, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, great. Then we need to hire more tiger lovers. Like, I'm totally making that up. That's not, he said it in a way more like adult way, but like that's the to me, like what gives me literal goosebumps is like I'm so excited by the power of that data, right? I just think there's so much data in our day-to-day lives that we just don't notice. And I'm seeing it a lot going through the weight loss process too. It's like if I don't drink enough water, I actually gain more weight the next day. Or like I had a lot of inflammation last week. I was having like an autoimmune flare up. And I get on the scale every day, which I know could be triggering for some people, but it's part of like my, data experiment. And so I get on it every day. And the day that I had inflammation, I was up 2 pounds. And like a lot of other people would have made that a problem, right? They would have been like, oh my God, I'm up 2 pounds. And I was like, oh my God, my poor body is so inflamed. Like, I know I didn't gain 2 pounds of weight overnight. Like, clearly something was going on. And so rather than like push it, I rested, right? I drank more water. I took ibuprofen. I like took care of myself. And the next day, not only was I back down to normal, the 2 pounds, but I was actually down a little bit more, right? So I think like the more you start looking at that in unrelated areas, the more you start to realize how powerful it is in your business.
So true. Elisa, you made me so happy. She said thinking about data is so fun, and I'm actually a much more intuitive person. So we love that. That makes my day. Yes. And she was talking about how like it's a great question too, where like, is there a way to track data that seems not like data? And she was saying when she like wrote her master's thesis, she had to do that all the time. And yeah, I think that's so true. It's like there's always a way to track something, but I feel like, and I almost feel the opposite in online business where it's like we're pretending that there's no data or something. Like I feel like our industry is like, oh, you can't know that. You just have to listen to me and I'll just tell you what worked for me. And it's like you can know so much shit like without even diving into the data that it doesn't seem trackable. There's like a million fucking trackable things that like everyone's just ignoring. It's like crazy making. But yes, both for sure, for sure.
Yeah. I always joke that I can like tell what people are thinking about doing on a website just based on like where they slow down in their scroll or like did they hover their mouse over this thing? Like it's almost borderline creepy. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like how much is
It's so
available? And
creepy.
it's not like, I mean, we follow obviously ethical tracking and all that, but like though it's like fascinating what you can know. And I think like we're just naturally the kind like in general, I think business owners, because we're so scrappy and because we're so entrepreneur, like we get things done, we also like, I think sometimes make this harder than it needs to be because we're such people that go all in. And so you're like, oh, I need all the things. And it's like, listen, get mechanisms set up to capture all the stuff and then
Truly.
focus where you want to look. Like you don't like, we don't look at every page of our dashboard every single day. We don't look at every single thing that we could every single day, right? Like we pick our battles. We feel safe because the data is always collecting and we know we can turn to it at any point if we need to, but we don't feel distracted or like controlled by it because it's not like something that we're like, oh my God, I mean, I would hate my life if I had to look at it every day. Like that's not, neither of us are those people. We're both very intuitive, like, you know, people too. And so, but it just gives you such a sense of peace to have that. And to also, like you said earlier in the call, like power, control, confidence, like being able to just feel like you're not just throwing spaghetti at the wall, but you're actually like working on things that you know will move the thing that you're trying to move one way or the other, right? Because sometimes you're gonna move it the wrong way and you're gonna be like, oh shit, the color blue actually was a terrible color for my people. But now you know, like before you didn't know that. So then you're gonna change it to, you know, whatever. Don't use red, apparently. Red, I just read that red's not the one. Although you and I have lots of friends that use red buttons on their pages and do phenomenally.
It's
So
so interesting. I was actually talking to a designer about this the other day, and she was saying that like it's so counter to use red, but she's seeing red work better now because it was so counter to use it. And so now it's standing out in a way that it did. Anyway, yeah.
it's fascinating because Neil Patel literally just posted this whole thing and he's like a pretty big like SEO guy. But I was thinking about it, like a few of your big clients, I know I'm not going to name names, but like I know quite a few because I've gone like I've looked at their stuff and or I know them and it's like I know they use red. So I was like, ooh, like to me that was like, ooh, that's so fascinating without giving kind of any kind of nuance to say in this because that might be true in
this
finance,
industry,
right? Like
yeah.
in finance using red might not work because accountants think red bad, green good, right? That's why you often see in finance people use green because that's the accounting color scheme. But like in coaching or with females, like that might be different. So I'm always fascinated when whenever somebody like makes an extreme like that, I'm always like, ooh, tell me more about what got us here. Like,
Yeah, tell me about the data that backs up everything you're saying. Thank you.
yeah, yeah.
So true. Okay, well, I feel like we got a little off topic in the best way today. So I hope that was helpful. But if you guys have more questions on like leads versus conversions, let us know that too. But also remember to grab that link and opt into the sales strategy simulator because it is going to be such a game changer. Even if you're like, I don't even have all the numbers to put into this right now, just seeing it and knowing how to look at it and how to think about it is going to be so freaking useful. So definitely grab that. We'll get it out to you in the next 24 hours or so if you opt in today. We're just putting
I think you'll get like our welcome email, like welcome sequence thing. But when I upload it all tomorrow, I'll send an email to everybody that opted in with the link and then the directions and everything. And agree, even if you don't have data yet, like put in your best guess. Like how many people do I think are going to click? And then based on, and I can put this in there too, like based on industry, you know, best guesses, right? Like, oh, you know, 20% of people will click through and then 50% of people like, and then you can go from there. And at least it gives you something to react to when you do have real numbers, because you'll have some context to go like, oh, how does this fit up against what I thought? It's funny because people always think that your guesses have to be perfect. And we at the company I work for, our CEO had said to somebody like, I want you to set goals like that you're going to improve, you know, X by X%. And she was like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, and we don't have to be able to, you don't have to like worry about it being like absolutely attainable. It's about setting the direction and having a goal and working toward it. And so I just was like super empowered by that because this is like one of the world's largest companies, like one of the most, actually the most powerful female CEO. So like having that again, that dichotomy of the two together, like I just wanted to pass that along too, because I think there's so much people could learn from that is like, we don't have to be perfect. We're setting these targets and then we're working toward them and trying to improve the best that we can.
So good. I love that. Joe, I just put it, I just linked it again for you and not under your comment, but my comment should come right under yours with the link again.
Yeah. And I'll say it out loud really quick. It's go.getdatable.com /strategy-simulator. So if, I mean, I doubt like if you're on the go, you're going to remember that,
No,
but it's
but
also
still,
linked in the
yeah.
comments. But again, you're going to opt in. It's going to say it's in your inbox. It's not in your inbox yet, but it will be in the next 24 hours. And yeah, I'm excited. And please email me if you have any questions, you know, hit reply if you have questions, whatever. We're happy to help.
Thank you so much, Jen. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm so glad you made this. And thank you guys. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.